So welcome to Spirit Business Podcast, Amber. So
Thank
excited
you.
to have you here today. How are you?
I'm doing really well, thanks. It's a beautiful day here, and I just got home from Mount Shasta, which is some really amazing energy. So I'm feeling good.
Nice. Doing a
Yeah.
little self-care,
Yeah. Mount Shasta had actually been calling me for a few months, and then it just got really insistent. And what I found is that when my soul gets insistent about something, I really, for the best of everyone, I need to give it to it. So yeah, Mount
definitely.
Shasta it was.
Good for you.
Thanks.
Well, let's dive right in. I know so many people, so many of the listeners are going to really identify with you and your target audience of helping intuitives and empaths. So I'm really curious to know, how did you get started on your spiritual journey?
Yeah. Well, it kind of comes in a couple of parts. Like when I was much younger, I remember like listening to guided meditations is like my teddy bear. I couldn't fall asleep without them when I was like, 6, 7, 8. And I remember actually this fairly clearly when I was around 8 or 9, just like wondering like, what is God? Like I was very confused about this concept. And so I just sort of asked myself, like, what is God? And I remember so clearly seeing every person in the world as a point of light, and then all of those points of light coming together. And then that was God. And it just like, it was such a huge moment for me. And I'm realizing that was probably like one of my first visions and one of my first channeling experiences. But then of course, when you talk about that kind of thing at the playground in elementary school and enough kids look at you strangely, you kind of shut that down. So I unfortunately shut it down for a number of years. But then in my early 30s, I started really starting to play with it again. And, a good friend of mine introduced me to energy healing. And then actually it was really, I had that, that heart cracking open moment when my father passed away, and like all of the emotions that as an empath I had just stifled. Like, anytime I felt something, I just take it and like stuff it into my spleen and be like, okay, hopefully it'll just die and I'll never have to feel it, which is terribly healthy, as we all know. But then, when that happened, it all just like exploded and I had to deal with it. And so in that process, I started working with, channelers and energy healers and anything I could get my hands on, really. And the first channeler I worked with individually, I was living in LA at the time, and she came into my apartment in Santa Monica and was like, "Oh, you're an empath and a channeler." And I like had to, when she left, I was like Googling empath and channeler because I didn't really know what those were. And then that just really, like, from there, it's been a downhill slide.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. And so now your work is to help sensitive souls, intuitives, and empaths to bring their light into the world. And you say in doing work with you on your website, you say you might meet your spirit guides, process a big knot of emotion, release 1,000 years of ancestral baggage. If you can, in a nutshell, how would you describe your coaching approach different from other, just life coaches?
Yeah, no, I love this question because I feel like, most life coaches really are very intuitive, like the good ones are. But I think they're a little bit more bound to working with your human self. And so the approach that I take and that other, intuitives and channelers take is to really, like, we work with the higher self, the part of you that your soul, we work with the part of you that knows who you truly are, not like all of the human baggage and cultural baggage that we take on and then have to filter through. So it's like going directly to the source. So, working with your higher self and working with your guides and your angels and any other, divine beings that you work with consciously or unconsciously. And for most of us, it's unconsciously. And so just going straight there is a lot faster and a lot more powerful. And it really can kind of pull us out of our human story. And being super fond of my human story, like I really appreciate that. Like I need someone to lift me out of my melodrama sometimes. So yeah, it's really powerful to go to that source and go to the part of you that knows your, your life path, your big gifts, your superpowers, and just kind of look from that place and explore from there and see what shows up.
Amazing. Amazing. So could you share a couple success stories from your coaching practice?
Yeah, I always sort of hesitate to claim any of these because I feel like we're all doing so much work and we're all like so very, 100% responsible for our own experiences. But the thing that I have noticed with the women that I work with individually and in my groups as well is that they always leave feeling lighter and feeling better and feeling more grounded and centered in their own, in their own gifts. I think one of the really terribly sad things for empaths is that, we often just think we're crazy because we're feeling all of these emotions all of the time, like before you learn how to really shield yourself and filter and clear yourself out. And so we just feel like we're absolutely insane. And so that can really affect our self-confidence and, and the way that we share ourselves with the world. And so kind of removing that layer, helping them heal that layer for themselves and just lift off that cloud so that their true self can really shine through. That's when you can really do your big work. That's when you can, receive the life that you want to receive. And so in more practical terms, the women I've worked with have written books and published books and started, writing businesses and started intuitive businesses and gotten pregnant. I definitely can't claim that one, but there is so much that goes in, physically and energetically to that kind of thing. So yeah, it's mainly just, people feel better after they work with, do this work with me. And that's kind of been what I've been looking for my whole life. I just want to feel better. I'm carrying everybody else's stuff. Please just help me feel better. So that's always that's my happiest when someone says, thank you. I feel better. I feel lighter. Yes. All right.
Amazing. Yeah. And I think that what I gather from your website and, our interactions is, you're really helping people dive deep. I'm not saying that many other life coaches or business coaches aren't, but, when you're really focused on the divinity and getting in touch with your true self, I mean, you're just cutting to the core.
Yeah.
And I know I'm an empath and I feel that sometimes I can't connect. I just can't get on board with a certain coach because I'm like, no, they just don't get the whole big picture of me and who I am and making it into something more dramatic than it needs. But I think that's important because we all need to connect with someone who gets us.
Yeah.
And you seem to really get people who are empathic, etc.
Yeah. I mean, I've lived that and I know how hard it is when you're still kind of crawling through that. And so it's just, I feel like empaths are really kind of underserved in this world currently. So, and they're so important. The empaths are, we're the ones who are bringing down this light and this love that the world needs so desperately right now. So helping them anchor that and really be able to be what they're here to be is so important.
Definitely. All right. So let's see here. I'm sort of reading without my glasses, so just a sec. So as an empath, what are some of let me start that question again. Sure. As an empath, what are some of your own personal challenges that you've experienced in business?
Yeah. That's a really good one. So I've found marketing myself and talking about my work to be one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. Like putting yourself out there, especially when you're feeling everybody's reaction to it or non-reaction to it, is, oh God, like it's taken years and years of work to get even semi-comfortable with that. But it's also so important, and I feel like we teach what we need to learn. And one of the things I need to learn is to let myself shine in that way as I'm working with women to help, because you can always see it so clearly when it's someone else, but then when it's you kind of just want to crawl under the bed and hide there for, a couple of weeks, maybe with some fried chicken. So that the marketing aspect of it and the, talking about it, because we're downloading these, this divine wisdom, these divine concepts that aren't always readily understood. And we're sort of all having kind of find our own language for it. And so really, even just today, somebody asked me what I did and I was like, oh God, I feel the flail coming on. So that's been a real challenge for me. And I feel like you just kind of have to keep moving through it and trust that the work is important enough to make any discomfort I personally feel worth it.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like you're a great example, because I connected with you on Instagram and you said, now you're regularly posting on Instagram and other social media channels. So what are some practical tips? Like, how did you get to the point where you are posting consistently and putting yourself out there, not just in text, but in photos and video?
Yeah, so that's been an evolution as well. But I feel like really in terms of tips, the best thing I can do is or the best thing I can say is really just post what brings you joy. That's really kind of the filter I try to use. So like if I'm in a beautiful place, I'm like, oh, this is just like my heart's going poof, then I'll take a picture and put it up. And, and sometimes I don't feel like I have it in me to write some big, epic, beautiful post about it. And so I don't, I'll just be like, hi, and post a pretty picture. I think sometimes you just have to like let yourself not be perfect with it. You have to just really look at what brings you joy and, and not worry about it from there. And like, if I look at a post, I'm just like, oh yes, that feels good, then I'll keep it. And if I post something and I'm like not feeling so good about it, like I'll check in and see like, okay, am I not feeling good about it because it's resistance or because I just need to delete it? And sometimes I push through and let it stay. Sometimes I'm just like, nope, goodbye. And off it goes. So just having fun with it. I feel like social media is one of those things where like, if you don't enjoy it, don't do it. There are other ways. There are always other ways. And just like trusting your own guidance with that is so important.
Definitely. And that's why other people are on social media. I like to focus on that as well. Like, other people who are just browsing social media are on there for fun. Even if you are a business owner, you might be taking a break from your day.
Exactly.
So it's really about developing that connection. And but it's so hard to get out of our own way sometimes, especially with photography, selfies and videos. And I've definitely been there. And now with this podcast, we're recording on video. So I'm just really focused on the service, on like, sharing these important messages, sharing the information that you have and, getting the message out to people who need it.
And that's what can really pull you through your own stuff, your own fear and resistance is just that really deep-seated knowledge that like, okay, this is what I'm here to do. There are people out there who need this and they need this the way that I share it because of, my story or my words or your story or your words. Like there are people who are, who can maybe only hear this message from you right now and they need that. And so that's just like, that'll really help you move through the, like, I really don't want to talk about this thing that I'm doing on social media right now. You're like, nope, got to, somebody needs it.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Very cool. So you recently started a channeling school.
I did.
Wow.
This is one of my favorite things.
I am so curious about this. So you say on your website where we are all born with the ability to download divine love and guidance and healing. And so I'm curious, how is the channeling school going so far? It's a new venture for you. And then how can you give us some insight into how do you help everyone recognize their gift for channeling?
Yeah, I mean, this really just, the idea for this showed up so quickly and was just so, it was actually just a message from a social media friend who's like, "Hey, are you starting a channeling school?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I am." And I hadn't even quite processed it through for myself at that point. And so I was like, okay, I need to do this now. And so really I put it together in about 3 days. I didn't have a website. I didn't do any of the things you're quote unquote supposed to do. I just put it out to sort of my places. And I had 14 women step in within 4 days, which blew my mind. I was like, if I get 3 people, I'll be happy to do this. And so it was really, for me personally, mind blowing. And then, because I didn't know what I was doing with it. I was like, okay, this is a channeling school, so you can channel this, Amber. It's fine. You can channel this. I'm like, oh, of course. And so I really just received the curriculum for this specific group of women. And we went through and we did individual healings.
Oh, hang on one second, Amber. It's the streaming is kind of lagging.
Clear.
Shoot. Hang on a sec.
Sure, we can start from there. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, so the curriculum is basically it's downloaded for them specifically. So each new iteration of this school will be different because it'll be what that particular group needs, which is really, it's a beautiful way to do it. And it's so much easier for me because I don't have to plow through my brain trying to think about how can I make this work. And it's just no, it needs to come from source. It doesn't need to come from my brain. Nobody needs it to come from my brain. So really it's support, because anyone who signs up for or even hears about a channeling school is a channeler, it's being filtered out. The people who can't do this aren't even going to see it. They aren't going to hear about it. And so anyone who shows up is ready for this. Anyone who is here just needs the support and the confirmation, really. I actually had a few women just be like, thank you. That all I really needed was the confirmation that, yes, I'm doing this. No, I'm not crazy. And, for help with some of the fears that come up when they start channeling for themselves or for others. And since I have been channeling for so many years, I can really just receive any of the questions that they have or the thoughts, the worries, the fears, and just be a support for that. And the other women in the group it's such a beautiful, supportive place. So it's really, it's a place to practice and to play with this and to know that you're just fully supported in this and that, yeah, this is a gift. This is, a superpower. And if you have it and you're curious to play with it, it's something you really, your soul's asking you to do it at that point. And so I just want to support women as best I can. And men, if any men show up, it's not gender specific. It's just support them. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a really loving place for them to explore that part of themselves and just receive anything they need in that process.
That's amazing. It's just so unique. And it just sounds like, offering this, the teachings in the coaching, channeling school, everything you're offering, it's just helping people get into their best self and bring their light into the world. And what's better than that?
Yeah, exactly. And just learning to trust themselves and learning to love themselves the way that they are loved, and that's, yeah, it's so important right now. And I know that it's something that I really desperately needed. So on some level, I think I'm trying to create okay, what would I have wanted, a few years ago or even now? And that's been a really good guidance point for me, actually.
That's great. I just look forward to the day when we don't even have to use the term conscious entrepreneur or conscious business. It's like, that's just what we do. That's
Because they're all
what we're
conscious.
doing.
Yeah. Right. I'm really looking forward to that day too.
You
And
make it happen.
oh yeah, absolutely. I feel like we've hit the tipping point. I feel like it is happening. It's just, we've got to keep our legs moving under us at this point.
Hmm. Now, let's give some advice, if you can, for any of the listeners to take away, whether they're an empath or they know someone in their life they think is an empath or highly sensitive. They might not even know those terms. They perhaps just landed on this podcast, but they have someone in their life they don't know how to entirely relate to. What piece of advice would you have?
For empaths in particular, trust yourself. And as an empath, you have such a highly sensitized, like you have such highly sensitized radio receptors to your own guidance, your own wisdom and divine source. It's all the same. You are divine. Even when it doesn't seem to match what maybe your brain thinks you want or what your family wants for you or what society says you should do. Trust yourself when you get that hit. Just as a quick example of this, when I was younger, I was very depressed because I was carrying the weight of everybody else's fear and emotion. And it just like, I was carrying it with me. So of course I was depressed. And so I went to the doctor about it and they wanted to prescribe a lot of medication for me. And while I think medication can be great, and if that's the thing that makes your soul sigh in relief, yes, do it. But I knew that for me personally, it was not what I needed. And I lost some friends over that. And I had, the doctor was not pleased with me, but I know that had I gone that route, I would not be doing what I'm doing now.
Wow. Wow.
And that is, that's a time when I had to trust that voice that says, this does not feel right. This is not for me. Even when people who were, who quote unquote knew better were telling me otherwise. And so really just, trust yourself. If something, as empaths, once we're clear enough to recognize what our feelings are such amazing guidance for us. Feelings are good guidance for everyone. And I think that really like trusting when something feels good and trusting when something doesn't feel good and just listening to that is so important.
Awesome. Well, I just had a random question pop up,
Sure.
and I'm going to throw it out there.
You
It might
do.
sound a little weird, but
I love weird.
yay. I am really curious are you born an empath or can someone actually become an empath?
That is a fascinating question. And actually, let me just check in on this because I feel like I have what I think is the answer, but I just want to double check.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So, and the answer to this, it feels like it's changed fairly recently. Most of us who are empaths have been born empaths, but now at this point in history, you can become an empath. I just got chills all over my body, which is always the signal that, on the right track. You actually can become an empath now. And you can do it consciously and you can do it in a way that you don't need to kind of suffer in the way that a lot of us did growing up, and our parents did. That is superpower almost that you can develop now. Because we're at that point, like things are, the ascension is happening, light is being downloaded and love is being downloaded to a point where that skill is starting to become valued. And so it is something that you can receive. I almost wanted to say develop, and I don't think that's it. I think it's more about receiving. There are people who weren't born empaths who will be guided to become empaths or almost like upgraded. I don't want to use that word.
Sure.
But that, you know, they'll be able to receive that kind of information, because it's, you know, the world is getting to the point where that will be honored, and that will be seen, like understood as useful. And I feel like this is going to happen more in like 5-10 years, but it is possible now.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Thank you. I just had that thought come up because, you know, what if there's someone out there listening who never thought of themselves as an empath, but it's so buried and, you know, they're just not really in touch with it yet. But then, you know, so I guess it's a latent, a latent empath.
Yeah.
They discover this is who they are.
Absolutely. And I think actually a lot of empaths have gotten to the point where they don't feel anything. You know, they've had to shut it down to such an extent, because it is so hard to live in this world as an empath if you don't know that that's what it is and you're just going around collecting everything like a sponge. So I think some people who are like, well, I don't feel anything, I couldn't possibly be an empath. It's like, well, actually, you know, you may just be so buried, and it's under there. You just have to start lifting off the layers.
Yeah, that's why I think these tools like meditation and into getting in touch with intuition, so many other tools I'm not even familiar with yet, but just being able to have more self-awareness. It's just, we have to teach that to kids.
Yeah.
Like you said, they're getting on prescription drugs. They're, you know, really burying who they are.
And they're being taught not to play and not to use their imaginations. And, you know, and these are the things that now I'm trying to get back to, like, how was I as a child? How did I play? How did I, you know, create from that place of just pure joy?
Yeah.
You know, and we're trying to train kids out of that. And then,
So those are the future empath business owners.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And kids are so sensitive. You know, I feel like on some level, every child is an empath. They're all born so sensitive and so malleable and so receptive to the world. But then, you know, it either locks down or, the world happens, life happens.
Definitely. Well, we can't end the podcast, Amber, without talking about your spirit animal. Yes, we are going there on this podcast, because I'll just let everyone know, one of the things that really stood out is I always read Twitter bios. And on Amber's Twitter bio, she talks about loving giraffes. And would you like to tell us about your spirit animal?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I would like to say that I do believe that every problem I have could be solved by a pet giraffe. I'm not sure this is actually true, but I like to cling to it in moments of doubt. Giraffes. So I started just noticing giraffes a few years ago, back when I started stepping more into the channeling for other people, not just for myself. So giraffes just started showing up everywhere. I'm actually not allowed to buy any more giraffes for my house because otherwise I will be that person. I can see 5 right now. So they just started really showing up. And so finally I just Googled, like, what is it? What are giraffes? Giraffe totem animal. Like, I just, needed to know. And so apparently giraffes are, they're far seeing wisdom. They have their head in the divine and their feet on the ground. And plus they are badass. Like, if you've ever seen a YouTube video of giraffes fight, like, don't get on their bad side. I'm still trying to find my bad side and my badassness, but it's in there somewhere.
I think so.
Yes, I think so too. So yeah, I just was like, yes, it feels like the perfect, the perfect animal for a channeler, for intuitives. You just, you want to reach that wisdom, but have it firmly planted on the ground. So I've just loved them ever since.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Amber. And I think everyone is going to be able to take away a lot from this podcast. Is there anything else you want to add in conclusion before we share your website?
Oh, nothing's coming to mind. I feel like we went in there, and thank you so much for having me. This has been such a pleasure.
Definitely. We'll have to have you back again and
Yeah.
hopefully get to meet up in person in the near
Yeah.
future.
Lovely.
And so where can people go to find you?
AmberAdrian.com. It's just my name, AmberAdrian.com. And that's where everything lives, including a few giraffes.
Awesome. Well, definitely everyone get on Amber's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, sign up for her email list, and, let us know what you thought of this podcast. We'd love to hear feedback from you. Thank you again, Amber, and we'll talk
Thank
to you
you.
soon.
Thanks.